So good afternoon. Is everybody awake, right? You're awake, you're ready, you're enthusiastic? Yes. How about, yes? Yes, okay, all right, good. Because it's about the time I want to take a nap, right? But anyway, my name is Suzy Stanfill, and I am with Eagle's Nest Ranch in Elizabeth, Colorado, which is southeast of Denver, like 45 minutes southeast of Denver. So we're actually kind of between Colorado Springs and Denver, and what's called the Front Range, and there's quite a high population of military because of Colorado Springs, right? Colorado Springs, we have Fort Carson, Schriever Air Force Base, Peterson Air Force Base, which actually they're part of the Space Command. And then we have Buckley Air Force Base in Denver. So anyway, lots of veterans. So how do I change the... Swipe my phone?
Swipe from right to left.
Okay. I'm going to give this back to you. So let's pray. I need that. Getting all excited. Then I get emotional. But all right, Heavenly Father, thank you so much. This rain is incredible and just shows us your power and your might. And but thank you for your love. Thank you for your all the work that you can do in and through us in the creation of horses. And I just pray you help me, Lord, because you know how passionate I am about this, and just help me make my words make sense, and that this is helpful. In Christ Jesus' name, amen. So how many of you already are working with veterans or first responders? Is anybody doing that now? No? Okay. Well, that helps me know how to communicate. How many of you are veterans? 3 of you. How about first responders, law enforcement, firefighter, paramedic? Awesome. Well, first of all, I just want to thank you guys for those of you who have served, because not everyone can do what you have done and have been in the place where you've been. And I just want to thank you for it. So I was telling you about Eagle's Nest to the left, to the right. There we go. I just want to tell you a little bit about myself. So I am not a veteran, not a first responder. I just put that up there really for me to help me remember what I wanted to share with you guys. I wanted you to know who I am and where I'm coming from, so you know where the Lord's had me and where I'm going. But kind of had a rough family life. My mom actually ended up taking her life when I was 23. So, but when I was 15, 16, the Lord called me into ministry. At that age, I knew I was going to be doing something to help people, but I didn't know what. And then also loved horses. Had a passion for horses since I was a kid. I remember at around 6 years old wanting to be a horse. So, but the Lord called me to ministry, and I went to Moody Bible Institute in Chicago and was a missionary for many years. I loved it. 2 terms in Peru. That's the Amazon jungle of Peru, and I had a horse in Peru, and I used to ride her out in the jungle. And then 1 term on the coast of Colombia, which was a whole different experience because of the terrorist activity and automatic suspicion for being an American in Colombia. Why are you here? Are you with the CIA, the DEA? Why are you here? So it was very different. Ended up coming back to the United States. I was 14 years in human services and was a director of a couple programs there. And how I got into the military piece of it was I was responsible for a small program with one of the county human services of helping kinship care, which is grandparents, aunts and uncles taking care of other people's children. It was a great little program, and this was kind of when the Iraq War was starting. And so the director of the county human services of that county particular wanted to do a program for the military. He had the foresight to see when our men and women come back from war, they are going to need some support. And the Iraq War is different than, like World War II or whatever, different, because there was not like a front line, You didn't know where the IED was. You didn't know if someone's walking around with a bomb, and just a whole different thing. So anyway, he wanted to have some support for the residents of his county, and he wanted to match it to the program that I already was running. So they gave it to me to develop, replicating that program, but for military. So I ended up doing that, and then other counties joined in. And so I did that for I think it was about 7 years. And also working with homeless veterans in Denver. And so the Lord used that to educate me. I didn't know all the things that our military go through and the things. I'm getting ahead of myself, so let me put it up here. I started Eagles Nest Ranch in 2014, and we started serving military right away. So when I started the ranch, I knew that we were going to serve veterans. And right about the same time when they asked me to start the program, my oldest son was in the Army, and he was also sent to Iraq. So I had the concept of being a mom, with my son in Iraq, and then also working with the families that came back. So these are just some of the challenges that service members have. And I first of all, too, I want to say that I am in no way an expert. I am just want to share with you some things that I've learned that will hopefully help you if you decide to move forward to work with the military. So these are some of the challenges they face. It's easier for me to look here, I think. Deployments, the unpredictability of things. When am I going? When am I coming back? When my daddy's going? When is he coming back? And then there was a study, the military-age school children scored 2.5 times higher in emotional needs than civilian children. And that's easy to understand, right? And then they make friends, and then they're moved, So it's not just the service member and what they face on deployment, but what's happening with the family at home. They can become adrenaline junkies, and that's where you get, all the risky hobbies, risky hobbies. Combat trauma. Then there's survivor guilt. I hear about that a lot. Why did I come home and my buddies didn't? Irregular sleep habits, divorce. I think divorce seems to be high all around, but specifically in families. I remember there was one family we were working with, and the wife said when her husband came home, he was not the man she had married. Not the man she had married. And then there was just some of the combat trauma and the PTSD. There was one young man, he came home and he was living with his grandmother. He didn't have other family. And the hypervigilance was so extreme that he would want to sleep in the living room on the floor because he could see the front door and he could see the back door of the house. And he slept, had a weapon with him. There was another wife who husband woke up in the middle of the night, he had a nightmare and thought that his wife was an Iraqi, and he's like, ready to attack her, and she's like, no. So, that's, in and out of different things. Here's some more things we already talked about. Relationship strains, the reintegration, that's a big deal because they've been gone. And so spouse and kids have found a way to live, and then they come back. And so now who's got what roles, and they have to shift roles again. Little boy doesn't understand why daddy doesn't want to go to the movie theater, or why doesn't he come play softball with me, because he or she is dealing with some of these other things that have happened because of their service. Depression, anxiety, suicide rate, traumatic brain injuries, those mimic a lot. The symptoms have pretty much the same symptoms as PTSD. And so the traumatic brain injury happens usually when there's been an explosion. They were not physically, like injured a body part, but the brain was racked because of the explosion inside their skull, which causes injury. And then I want to say about the veteran up there, I've got two things: lack of purpose, lack of community. So the military culture, it's their own culture, and I'm still learning it. I don't claim to know all the military culture, but it's there. And that brotherhood, that sisterhood, I don't know about sisterhood, but that brotherhood and that community that they feel. And then they're discharged. Where's my community? And so they can feel very isolated, very alone. And some of them, if they've gotten a lot of those problems they're dealing with, then the addictions and then homelessness could happen. And so one of the things that we work with, since we're so close to Denver, we have been able to work with, it's called the HUD-VASH program. So these are housing vouchers for veterans who are homeless. So there's an actual program in the hospital. And so now these folks have gotten housed, but they keep them with a case manager so that they can stay housed. Anyway, somehow, I don't remember how we all got connected. I think it was from my previous job of, when I was with Human Services, I knew some of these folks. And so now running the ranch, they started bringing those veterans out. So imagine, a government vehicle is coming out to a faith-based program, knowing we're faith-based, and they bring them out. So we were they come out once a week. Sometimes it's one, it is. Sometimes it's one. Sometimes, I don't take usually more than 4 or 5 because I like the one-on-one personally, just because I get to know them better. But the group sometimes works too. And so these have been men and women who were at one point on the street. I'll go on. Okay, then let's switch over to first responders. So I started working with the military, immediately, and then it was like 2 years later, one of my board members was with the sheriff's department, and he came over to volunteer with his 2 sons, and they're believers, and we were out in the pen mucking, and I heard him ask his kids about their Bible lesson that day in Sunday school because he wasn't there. And the boys were talking about David and Goliath. And Dad said to the boys, well, that's what I do. I'm David, because he's law enforcement and they're fighting Goliath, And then it was like, ding, 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 Suzy, okay. You talk about people going out on deployments. They walk out the door every day and they're on deployment. They don't know if they're coming home. They don't know, Mom, So then it was like, okay, we got to serve the first responders too. They also have some of the same things now. The hypervigilance, and we'll talk about that in a minute too. Long hours. And then other things, the loneliness, guilt, and the other things more recently too, how the view of law enforcement, particularly the police, has changed, and that affects them. And then the laws have changed, and so they are much more vulnerable in their work, in what they do. And, they have to wear the camera, and everything they do or say could be taken out of context or judged or whatever. And then some of the laws that are put in place makes them personally liable for something. So then there's people that have left. So that's short-staffed, and so then they've got to work more. The ones that are still active are more hours. So I think what I'll do is I'll tell you a little bit how we started working with first responders. There was, when my board member was telling me about the kids, and I was like, oh yeah, they're on deployment, so how can we reach that population? So I decided to, let's start with the kids. If we get the kids involved, then maybe I can get the parents involved. So we started doing something called First Responder Buckaroo Days. And we've been doing that for 7 years now. And the idea was, we'll invite the kids to come out to the ranch we had actually 4 hours from 11 to 3, and let mom and dad go do whatever they want to do. And we had a good response. And then the next year, 3 deputies were shot and killed. Neighboring counties, 3 within 2 months. Excuse me. And so then it was like, in my mind, it was like, we've got to do the family, not just the kids, the family. So we started. So that from that year forward, we've been inviting the whole family out for a day of fun. Like I said, call them Buckaroo Days. We do 3 separate days in the summer. And we do horses, games, hay rides. We do a devotional. We do crafts. We feed them lunch. And so my thought was, they can come out and see the ranch and then get to know us. And if they have a need outside, then they can come back for sessions. So I didn't tell you what we actually do, but the core of our program is modeled after Crystal Peaks Youth Ranch in Oregon. So we do the 90-minute sessions. We start with a chore, then we do the rest of it's horse time. But it was important to me to serve adults a lot, like I said, because of my mom and that she didn't have resources. So we also serve the general public. So horses, I think this is part where you probably can understand, I probably don't even need to talk about why horses are good with this population, but they're survival animals, right? They want to know they're safe. Military want to know they're safe. First responders want to know they're safe. So that's why they don't want to go into a movie theater. They come back, they don't want to go in the dark like that. And horses want to know they're safe. Because of that, I think it's something that this population can relate to. Horses instinctively, assess their surroundings, assess their circumstances. They can, and the cool thing is that horses can be at attention, right? And then they can be at ease. And so, and they know how to regulate that. And so for those that I mentioned about before about the hypervigilance, then they can see how the horse can change and do it pretty easily and without, without letting it take control over them. They're herd animals, so they rely on each other and live in community. And that's what I was talking about, that a lot of the veterans will feel like they've lost their community because they were discharged and they're just go out. And they see how the horses rely on each other. They understand that, relate to that. Horses, wild horses, 1 or 2 will lay down. The whole herd won't lay down, right? Because there's sentinels watching. to protect. The hierarchy and respect for leadership, and horses want leadership. Brave and non-judgmental. Horses accept us as they are. Right now, in this moment, how are you with me? So they don't, the horses don't look at your past or what you've done or where you've been or what you've been through. It's like, how are you with me? Am I safe? Am I safe with you? One thing too is with some of the different veterans that have been out, and they will tell me, individually as I'm talking with them or something, how just being with the horse, being in the presence of a horse, they don't have to be doing anything, just grooming a horse, the stress level goes down. All the intrusive thoughts of PTSD is pushed away, or especially if I put them in a round pen with a horse, right? Your focus has got to be on that horse, and especially if they're not used to being around horses and then they're in the pen with a horse, all that other stuff gets pushed aside. Another veteran said that, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, that PTSD doesn't necessarily go away. It's just a matter of managing it. He said you just have to find a way to cope with it. You just manage it, cope with it. What are your coping strategies? And then for yourself, if you want to start a program with military, is just some things to ask. Who's eligible? A lot of the programs out there for military, it's this era. And it's only, does not include all types of discharge. Do they have to prove to you that they're a veteran? What is it? Who is your population? And for us, I don't make them prove to me that they're a veteran. If they come to me or they call us and they say I'm a veteran and I want to see about what you're doing, fine, come on out. We have a form for them to fill out, and I do find out, are you active duty? Are you a veteran? Did you have deployments? Do you have PTSD? Do you have a TBI? It's just for me to have understanding, but I don't make them, I want to see your DD-214 or anything. What about the family members? Are you going to serve the spouse and the kids as well, or is it just the service members? Group or individual sessions, or both? And what kind of staffing needs do you have if you're going to serve them? Dedicated time. And so one thing that I have it up here in a minute is, one of the things if you want to serve them is have a dedicated day or time or afternoon or morning. Don't mix it and have kids going over here and your military over here. They need to have their own time and own dedication to serving with them. Guidance and direction from the Lord, Yeah, that's all I'm going to say. Yes. Yeah. We need that. And the more, so like I told you, I'm not a veteran, I'm not a first responder. My dad was in a court system and probation. But if you can get some veterans and or first responders to do sessions with you, I highly, highly recommend it. And I think it's difficult anyway to have adult session leaders, or at least to find them. I have found someone who's a strong, mature Christian, someone who has compassion, and someone who has availability. Finding all three of those has been hard. But we have a couple of veterans now that are helping us in the sessions, and I'm training them to do sessions, but they're not necessarily horse people, but they join me. They're with us, and just for me to watch their interaction is awesome. I love it. And so even if they're just present, you know, and are helping with the horse, if they happen to have the horse experience. What time are we on? Oh, no, I'm sorry.
3:05.
Okay. That's another story. Yeah, no, he's not. So session leaders, yeah. So we usually, if I have a group, then I want 2 or 3 people with me. So a lot of times it's just for the horses, to help with horses. So they may not be doing some of the actual work with it, but having them there is pretty good. So like I said, the VA group will bring them. The veterans, first responders, I think it's been a harder group for us to get in, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But you want to train yourself to understand military culture, and I'm going to give you some resources. Because even though we can't, like I can't make myself be a military person, I can learn and hear and have friends with them and understand them. It's important. It's going to affect your ability to work with them. So here's some training. The va.gov. There's all kinds of resources there. They've got a lot of information on PTSD, all kinds of stuff. Help for Our Heroes. Some of the information that I shared was from them. And then psycharmor.org lessons. So it's a nonprofit themselves, and they want to help other people know how to serve veterans as well as first responders. They've mainly been military, but now they've kind of opened a door up to, are you familiar with them then? Okay. So they have different lessons on military culture, military 101 or PTSD or TBIs or anything. Like, they have a lot of this information, and their videos are only like 20 minutes, 30 minutes each, so it's easy to go through them and learn. So that's what, if I'm training someone to be a session leader with our program, then I have them do some of those lessons. And then for first responders, servingheroes.net is a good resource. This man, he was in law enforcement, and he travels around the country doing trainings for people who want to be chaplains or working with law enforcement or firefighters. So that's, I've been to one of his trainings, but he's got about 4 or 5. So that's, and it's cheap. He doesn't charge like $500-600 to go. Suicide prevention training, I think that's also good just to have. You never know where they're at when they come up the driveway. So if you have some understanding of how to have that conversation, or they bring it up, what to do. Go on a ride-along with law enforcement. I got to do that this past spring with a Denver police officer, and it was a 10-hour shift. And so, and you know what? This was a Buckaroo Day family. They had come with their 10-year-old child to Buckaroo Days, and that's how I got to know them. So started developing a relationship, and I told him I was wanting to do a ride-along. And for COVID, they stopped all that ride-along stuff for a while. But then I got to go with him, and it's a 10-hour shift. And he said, well, he usually only takes people maybe about 4 hours, And I said, well, okay, whatever you want. But he was comfortable enough with me and wanted to show me. He wanted to show me some action. So I ended up staying with him for the whole 10-hour shift. It went to 10 o'clock at night. And, he kept wanting something to happen, but he did. But finally, around 9 p.m., we had to get over to the other side and this is in Denver. We went 120 miles down I-25, which is a major highway. And I'm like, okay, Lord, well, I just might see you in a couple seconds. Because, I mean, he was weaving in and out, and it was crazy because he had his, they've got their computer right there, with the steering wheel. He's looking at his map to where it's going. He's listening to the radio to getting updates of what's happening. And we're going 120 miles down the highway. So it was crazy, but it was good. It was good to go with him. And especially in Denver, there was a lot of negative stuff for the police. So when they go to their lunch breaks, they don't go to a public place. There's a city of Denver, I think it was like the waste management, had like a little room like this where they would come and eat their lunch. That's where they would come and eat their lunch. They also told, and they won't use public restrooms because they don't know what's going on in there or anything. And he said they don't eat anything, go to any restaurants where they can't watch their food being made. So like Subway, Chipotle, you can see them, you watch them, they do it, and then they wrap it up and give it to you. So if they have to go in the back and get your food, they won't eat it because soap has been put on their food, people will spit in it, and they don't deserve that. They don't deserve that. So just spending that day with him taught me so much, and the camaraderie between them, and also the backup that they had with each other. So the one that I went with he didn't have a partner, and the other one, some of them have partners and some of them don't. But if they get the call and they hear, and they're like, okay, I'll meet you there, that kind of thing. So it was good. I won't tell you all the other stuff we got to do, but it was good. I was glad I went. I would do it again. Books, internet, and just a lot of prayer. Okay, going back to military. Where am I doing my time? Okay, so military. Like, I live in Denver area, so we have a lot of veterans. But if you don't know what your census is for the veterans, how many veterans are in your county, just go to your count, just go to the census stats and look up your county, and it'll tell you. Is it 40,000? Is it 100,000? And that'll give you some information to go on. If there's a VA I don't know if there's a VA hospital. If there's not a hospital, there's usually clinics, unless you're really rural, which could be because of being on a ranch. Look at those. VFWs, American Legions, are a possibility. What I've been told is that there's not as many as there were, and a lot of them are closing down because the veterans that are coming out now are not really interested. That's what I've heard. They're not interested in doing that. They want to do something different. Veteran homes. That's one thing I still want to do. We have a veteran home, and during COVID, we have 2 little ponies, and I wanted to take them there, but actually they wouldn't let us even do that. The county VSOs, Veteran Service Officers, a lot of counties, at least in Colorado, I don't know about other states, go to your county human services and find out if there's a Veteran Service Officer. And then they're there mainly to help veterans access their benefits. But they would, they'll be able to help you, or at least, refer veterans to you. Also the human services. And then find out if there's other nonprofit organizations in your area that serve veterans, and see if you can partner with them. Like I said, the VA hospital is bringing veterans, so that's a partnership we have. I'm talking with, it's a like addiction rehabilitation center that have residents. They came out and visited us, and so now they want to start bringing some of their folks out to the ranch. Facebook groups to find out. So like we are on a a law enforcement, it's not an official group at all. It's just, it's called Blue Lives Matter, Colorado Blue Lives Matter or something. And so I can post on there when we have activities and stuff. Find out some churches have Bible studies for first responders or for military. That's a good way to connect. And there's a lot of maybe resource directories where you can get listed as being a service provider. And a lot of the colleges actually have a veteran, like they have an office for veterans, so they can, process their military benefits. Their, they had what was it used to be called, Montgomery? The GI grant, they don't call it that anymore. It's got what's that? 9/11. The 9/11. So, so they could probably help you too. Hospitals sometimes, especially if you're in either a TBI kind of unit or a psychiatric unit, mental health unit, sometimes we'll have someone working with veterans. And then National Guard headquarters. So the National Guard folks, a lot of times they feel isolated. They feel alone because they do not have that community, because they all live out in the community, but they're not like living, in barracks or have a lot of contact. Maybe they're the weekend warriors that go 1 weekend a month, but they have needs too. So those are some ideas. First responders, I think that's easy. I think they're easier to find because their department's already there. But I think a good way to reach them is a lot of them now are recognizing the need for support. The stigma is still there of PTSD, but they're recognizing it more and they're trying to get ahead of it. What is sad to know is that there is more death by suicide than line of duty death among our police and fire too. So because of that, they're putting in wellness people and chaplains. So they are a good resource of, hey, I want you to know, out at our ranch, we serve first responders and we don't charge. So that's one thing, we don't charge anybody who come out to our program. And I can tell you the Lord has blessed and blessed. Sometimes, we have needs, and sometimes it feels like, oh, what are you going to do, Lord? And when are you going to do it? But He has. And I'm still learning, still learning. So you could reach out, like the last thing there, do an appreciation night or something. If you do something in your community and you invite them, hey, would you guys come on out to our ranch? We want to do a picnic. We want to thank you for what you're doing. We want to honor you. It's a way to get them to you, because the trust can be hard to build, right? And plus, they don't want to appear as weak. So final remarks. That's where I was going off, is that it takes a while to build the trust. It's not going to come immediately. They want to know who you are and what you represent. We were talking about, about the self-preservation. So they're coming out to a ranch. They don't know you. They don't know what your intention is, what it is you want to do. Who are you going to tell, or whatever it is? They're there for self-preservation. They're all about self-preservation. So it's going to take a while to build that trust. And if you start making contact with somebody, then they get transferred, or they go to a different department, and then you got to start over again. So we've had that a few times. Don't ask too many questions of them. I want to know what your story is, but it doesn't mean I do not want to come across to them like I am a therapist and a clinician and I want to know everything and tell me your history like they've told it 100 times. Why? I don't need to tell them again or have them tell me. they will tell me as they feel a need to. That's my viewpoint. That's where I come from. So we do chores before the session starts, and I highly recommend that because just the physical movement of mucking and doing something outside. A lot of them, like I said, they come from downtown Denver. Just to be outside, they get out of the car or out of the van, and it's just, wow. Just to be out there, and then to see animals. So when you're doing, there's something, I don't have the education around it, but just doing something physical is helpful for the brain, and you can kind of just decompress. So we may be mucking, and they start telling us something. We start getting a little bit of their history. Or share something that we didn't know before about them, or little by little. And I'll tell you one. So I had this one veteran, like I said, they came out and with the case manager. The case managers would rotate, and we were in the round pen working with a horse. And then I had this one guy come in just to lead the mare around. And then he was going to brush her, and so the case manager was there watching just on the outside, and he's brushing this mare, and he gets this huge smile on his face. And the case manager was so excited because he's been working with this man for a few years and never saw him smile. In a few years, he never saw him smile, but when he's brushing a horse, that smile came on his face. So it was neat to see. Hands-on time. I mean, you guys know, just physically having your hands on a horse or just brushing your horse. And then if you can get a veteran or first responder to be on your board, that'll help a lot in just understanding more and more about it. These are just other pictures from just over the years. Oh, let me tell you about this one right here. This was cool. This was this first guy, the first time he came out. Actually, he only came out once, but I knew he had PTSD, and it was more from childhood stuff. But anyway, we were in that corral mucking, and this horse was laying down, just like she is. And she was still kind of new to me, but so I'd never approached her while she was down like that, okay? So we were mucking, and because we always do chore before a session, and I saw her laying down here. There was actually two horses laying down, the other one you can't see. And so the Lord was like saying, okay, the session is starting right now. So we put the muck forks to the side, because he's watching her. And I said, well, why don't you go down and see her, and let's see what she does, So I gave him just some short instruction to be on this side of her and not the other side of her. And he went down there, and I really didn't know what she was going to do. I didn't know what she was going to do. And he started, I said, see if she'll let you, pet her on the neck. And as you can see, she did. And then she laid completely down. She went all the way down with her head down, and I could see her ears moving, and I'm watching and stuff, and his grin just grew and grew and grew. And I asked him, so what is she teaching you? And he said, she's teaching me how to relax. And so, the horse is doing the work, not me, so which is great, and the Lord's doing the work through the horse, so it's neat. But anyway, do you guys have any questions? Were we good on time? Any questions? Yeah?
What do you do as far as a therapist bringing their own thoughts?
I haven't done that. Not to say that I wouldn't, but I don't even call what we do equine therapy, because I'm not a therapist, and I don't want people to have the impression that we are doing clinical therapy there. So that's what people understand, when you use the word equine therapy. But I say, we get interactive sessions with horses is basically, what I do or how I explain it.
Do you have a curriculum, or are you just doing however many times they want to come?
That's a good question. No, I do not. And no, I don't have an end time. If they want to come, and we have space, which we usually do, they can come as much as they want. And and I don't have like, this is lesson 1 and lesson 2. We don't do that. It's more of, what do you need today? What's going on with you today? And I'll let them, sometimes they'll choose a horse. If they don't care, then I'll choose the horse. Sometimes we do very informal things, like just grooming a horse or taking the horse out to graze. Other times I have structured, what you would call an EAL activity to help with a certain thing. And another thing with that, there was this one guy that came out, because this group that comes out, I never know who they're bringing when they come from the VA. I don't know who's coming. So sometimes they're new, sometimes they've been there before, and sometimes they may come once. And so this one guy came out, and he was a younger guy, and I knew that he was having a tough time. And actually, I don't think his picture is. I always ask these guys if they care if I take their pictures. It's just so you know. Anyway, he just came that one time. He got with the buckskin mare there. She's awesome, but I didn't see him again. But he stayed in my mind, and I would pray for him from time to time. He made such an impression on me that day because I knew he was having a tough time. 5 years later, he came back. He came back again with the VA group. So, and he came out about 4 or 5 times in a row. And when he walked in the barn, I recognized him. I couldn't believe it, that he was surprised, like, that I remembered him, but it was very powerful. So, and I have one veteran, his picture was on one of the other slides, but he's been coming out at least 6 years. He comes and goes, And we really had a session like last week, because now, but I talk to him probably 1 or 2 times a week, but he got very, very angry. He has a lot of anger and a lot of rage, and a lot of it towards God. And we had a very loud session. But thankfully, he texted me later, and he lost his service dog. He has no family, he has no friends, and he had to put his service dog down. So it was hard. So yeah, it's open-ended. Any other questions? Thoughts about it? The more you can learn about their culture and where, what they'll share, the more powerful it'll be. And like I said, in law enforcement, I am finding it hard to get in there. We have them, a lot of it comes from Buckaroo Days. So after Buckaroo Days, they'll call me and or email and say, hey, my son, my daughter. So sometimes it's their children that we're working with. And sometimes the parent will come out too. So, yeah.
Do you do parent and child sessions?
If they want it, yeah. Yeah, we do. I'm just laughing because one was with law enforcement, like a deputy and his daughter and the wife, and the dad did not have a lot of patience with her. And so do you guys know the exercise called the brain? Where you have someone in the middle who gives the instructions about putting on a halter or saddle, and the other ones are the arms or whatever. Well, I had them do that, and I put the girl in the middle, the little girl in the middle, and he had a hard time just listening to her So that gave, things to talk about, and that now he had to be the one to listen and obey. So it was different. It was neat. Any other questions or anything? Comments? How many of you think you probably are going to go that direction? Oh, praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. It's needed. It really is. We get veterans, recent returnees from deployment. But that other guy that I was telling you about, sometimes we have Vietnam veterans. We actually have a lot of older veterans. So they're still living with difficulty or nightmares or just re-engaging with society. So, all right. Well, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah.